Mining community, hope we're all well. We have another episode and we have a returning guest who first appeared back in July 2019, which was episode 36. So after listening to this, please go back and revisit that episode. So we have Jeff Quartermaine, who's the Managing Director and CEO of Perseus Mining, who are a rapidly growing West African gold producer, developer and explorer who currently operate 3 gold mines in Ghana and Cote. Jeff has been with Perseus for over 12 years and has more than 30 years experience in senior corporate, financial and strategic management roles with ASX and TSX-listed resources companies involving operations in Australia, as well as countries in Asia Pacific, South America and West Africa. He's here today to give us an update on the tremendous progress the company has achieved over the last 2.5 years and what the outlook is for the company over the next few years. So that's welcome Jeff to the podcast. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming back on the show. So a lot of things have obviously happened over the last 2.5 years. So for those that haven't listened to the first episode that we recorded, I want to give us just a brief overview of yourself and of the company.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I mean, from my point of view, I've been the CEO of Perseus now since 2013. Prior to doing that, I was the CFO for a while and sort of moved into this business. So I've been at it now for, near enough to 10 years in this particular role. It's been an interesting journey for us. We've come from being an exploration company essentially to, first of all, have 1 mine, then 2 and 3 mines as we speak today. So we've moved from being a junior explorer to a mid-tier gold producer, and in the space of about 10 to 12 years. So it's been a very interesting journey, and one that we thoroughly enjoyed, but it's been a fair bit of hard work along the way.
Yeah. Like I said, we spoke 2.5 years ago. You outlined some exciting plans that you had for the company relating to development of your 3rd mine. How did those plans turn out, and how was your execution impacted by obviously COVID?
Yeah, well, look, in short, it turned out really well. I think when we last spoke, it would have been in what did we say, 2019, around the middle of 2019, and we'd just really begun construction at that time of our 3rd mine. COVID at that stage of the game wasn't even a thing, so that didn't come into play until about March 20, and by then we were well into construction. Now, we managed to work through all that and still finish the development of the operation ahead of schedule and under budget, which was a pretty fair achievement, given everything that was going on at that particular time. We poured the first gold in the mine on the 17th of December 2020 and declared commercial production at the end of March 2021. Now, we were very happy with the way the construction went, very happy with the way the commissioning went, and been absolutely delighted with the way the mine has operated ever since then. I mean, in the June half, we produced something like 59,000 ounces of gold. In the December half, we produced 140,000. So that was a pretty, rapid increase. Got us up to a couple of hundred or 299,000 ounces by in calendar 21, and all of that came at an all-in site cost of $760 an ounce. Now, during that period of time, of course, we have been fortunate to see that the gold price has been moving strongly in our favour, and so in fact the timing of the development of this 3rd mine couldn't have been better from that point of view. What we've also done in the last 12 months or so is come to realise just how good this Yaouré mine and district is in terms of the mineral endowment, and we've been doing quite a bit of exploring there in recent times and delineating new reserves, and looks very much to me that as if we will be mining at Yaouré for many years to come. So that's really been quite pleasing. In terms of the COVID thing, I mean, in the West, obviously COVID has had a very major impact on the way people have gone about their business. In West Africa, to people's surprise, it has not been as dramatic as what we might have thought. whether that's a function of just simply the genetics or the robustness of the population to infection or what, I don't know. But certainly we haven't seen massive levels of infection. In fact, in the first year of the COVID pandemic, we didn't have a single case of COVID at all at any of the sites. Now, part of the reason for that was that we did implement a very strict system of managing the situation. A number of our people had worked previously in Guinea and Liberia and the like during the Ebola epidemic, so they were well versed in how you manage these sort of situations. Now, at the end of the first year, we did start to ease back on the restrictions, and we did see a few cases come in, but nothing that had really knocked the business around. Where it is starting to bite, though, I suppose, and this is not particular to West Africa, in fact, it's right around the world, is that the cost of spare parts and steel goods, freight, et cetera, is starting to increase, and you can see that in the cost structure of a lot of mining companies around the world. So, in a sense, that is the indirect result of the COVID pandemic, where industry has suffered, outside. But it's been an interesting journey. But what we have done, of course, as I say, is bring on our third mine. That was the second mine that we'd built in 4 years, and now we put ourselves into a position where we're producing around 500,000 ounces of gold a year and generating somewhere in the order of 300 to 400 million of cash flow from our operations each year. So we've managed to build a fairly robust, healthy company, over the space of that 10 years or so.
And just obviously mentioning COVID and the last obviously couple of years, how has travel been for maybe some of your senior management or any expats that you do employ to travel between Australia and Africa, obviously with what has been going on in Australia with border closures? How difficult has that been? How have you got around that?
Well, it hasn't been too difficult to get out of the country. Getting into the country has been the challenge, because there's been limited seats available on aircraft and things of that nature. And also then when you would arrive back in Australia, you needed to quarantine in hotels, which was not a particularly pleasant experience. I know that from having done it myself. So look, it has been something of a restriction, and what we've had to do is to manage that very, very carefully. Guys that were on regular rosters, the rosters have become a little bit longer. For people like me who visit the sites and visit the countries, I mean, I've done 3 journeys since June last year, so we manage it reasonably well. But the task of travelling these days is quite involved. We've got it down pretty pat right now, know what we need to do, but it's not for the faint-hearted. You need to really have your act together in terms of having your paperwork ready to go and knowing what's going to go on, and also be very flexible, because airlines can change their rosters at a moment's notice. So it has been a bit of a challenge. It has added some cost to the business, but it hasn't been an insurmountable problem. And we're all vaccinated and take proper precautions, and we get on with business.
It sounds like you're obviously now in a position to sort of generate more substantial cash flows in the coming years. But what is your strategic vision for the company, and where do you want to be in sort of 10 years' time, and how do you sort of plan to get there?
Well, yes, we are generating a lot of cash, and I think what we have done, over the last 10 years is build a very, very strong platform from which to grow and to leverage. So over the next 10 years or so, what we want to do is to take advantage of all of that hard work that's been done by a very large group of people. And I think what we would look to do is to continue to grow, either or both organically and inorganically. So we've mounted some very strong exploration programs, spending a good deal of money on looking for making discoveries through the drill bit, and with some real success, I might add. And in addition to that, we look around at various M&A opportunities to see where there are, assets that might make sense for us to join up with the company. For instance, if a small company has a very good asset but lacks cash or the technical know-how to bring a property on stream, that's where we can certainly assist, because we do have cash flow. We do have the capability of building successful projects, and then of course operating them. So that's the sort of thing we'd be looking for. Now in 10 years time, goodness knows who where we're going to be and who's going to be there. But I'd like to think that Perseus will be in business in 10 years time and will be operating 4 to 5 gold mines in Africa and generating a lot of benefits for all of our stakeholders, not just shareholders, but the people who host us in their countries, the people who work in our mines, and the people who supply us goods and services.
The ESG lobby has been growing rapidly in recent years. How does this impact on Perseus's business, and how are you responding to increasing stringent demands from some sector of the investment community?
Well, it's an interesting matter, actually. I mean, for us, the ESG lobby is kind of it's interesting because, frankly, we've been observing these things forever. It's always been part of our DNA. What we haven't done very well, I suspect, is to talk about it. We've tended to go under the radar on the sorts of things that we've been doing. It's always been very clear to us that we are guests in other people's countries, and as such, we needed to manage our business in a way that was not going to damage the environment or to breach regulations or laws, or to disadvantage in any shape or form the people who were good enough to host us in their communities. So, for us, our social license to operate has been a key feature of what we've sought to build over time. Now, in the last couple of years, people have put a label on that. They call it ESG. And so from our point of view, it's like, well, yeah, that's what we've always been doing, perhaps not doing it the way that other people now might say is the standard way. So what we actually are doing, we're not ignoring the requirements. We are working strenuously to make sure that right across our business, we operate at the best standards that we can possibly adhere to. So, we've looked globally at where the benchmarks are, and then we've gone and assessed exactly what we're doing. We've done gap analysis and set out a journey for about 3 years, which we believe will bring us up to the global standards and put us into a position that, we'll compare favorably to any of our peers. I think we're already in that area in many respects, but we can always do better.
Obviously, your growth over the last few years has been outstanding. So what do you put this down to, and has there been any major drivers for your success?
Well, look, I mean, it's pretty simple, really. We've done a lot of hard work and been somewhat lucky in a sense. I mean, luck does play a part in it, but I think also too, we've got some very experienced people on our board and in our management team, and we've all witnessed the way various other companies have operated over a period of time. We've seen the good and the bad. And what we've tried to do in our business is learn from the mistakes of others, or, things that didn't work so well in other places, and make sure that we as a group of people have avoided some of those pitfalls. I might say, it's not without its challenges. I mean, every day is a new day, and we have a bit of a saying in our place, never a dull moment, and it's absolutely true. So I think the thing, though, is that has counted a lot is that we are very resilient. We don't get knocked off course that easily. And I think that now through that experience, we're reasonably able to respond to challenges very quickly and be able to address those problems when they arise. But, what I guess the strongest lesson that I've learned over the 10 years is how little I know. I think a big mistake that Western companies make when they go to developing countries or the like is to think that it's the same operating there as it is at your home, and that's very definitely not the case. And so I think one of the important things is to be able to go into places where we go, listen to what is being said, respect differences, and try and find ways of making things work within that framework. It's been very important for us to do that, and I think that's been a key to the success we've had to date.
Yeah, and I suppose it's like any business, it's the people that manage and run the business, and it's how you respond to challenges. Obviously, we're involved in mining, so you've got assets, but I suppose it's ultimately the people that are running the company and running the assets that determine how successful a business is going to be and the challenges that you're faced. And it seems obviously you guys have done that.
Well, look, it's a critical part of it. I mean, I say there are 5 things that you need for a successful business. You need physical assets, you need human assets, you need financial assets, you need markets, and you need a social license to operate. Now, if any one of those things is missing, then your business is going to struggle. So, if you don't have a good team of people, then it doesn't matter how good the assets are or how strong your social license is or how much money you've got, you probably won't be successful. And the same thing can be said if you don't have a social license or you don't have money, you're going to struggle. So those 5 pillars are extremely important to be maintained at all time, and to maintain the strength of it. And certainly, people is a super important piece of the business as far as we are concerned.
How do you see the mining industry sort of developing in Africa over the next decade? And what jurisdictions do you see as big growth areas?
Well, it's a really interesting question, a very interesting question, and it would take a very long time to answer. But let me just say this: that particularly, I'm using my experience in West Africa, and I think you could probably, extend that to other parts. One of the biggest problems that the African countries have is high population growth, and trying to generate sufficient income to be able to give all of those people a quality of life that they feel that they deserve. Now, what that means then is you're going to have significant competition for land use, whether it's mining or agriculture or industry or anything of that nature. Now, I think that there's no doubt that mining has a very important part to play, both in terms of the formal mining sector and, let's just say, the small scale mining sector. I think both the formal mining sector and the small scale mining sector can coexist very comfortably, and in fact can learn from each other. Where this gets a little bit, the water gets very muddied though, is when that small scale mining sector gets infiltrated by criminals or foreign nationals who have a different agenda and who don't respect the laws and the like of lands. And I think they create significant friction with other land users. So if you look at Ghana, for instance, where the Galamsey, the so-called Galamsey, I mean, I call them illegal miners in many instances, have polluted water streams, waterways very badly, and created health issues downstream, or dammed up creeks and rivers, and destroyed farming land. That sort of business actually, is seriously problematic. I think the formal mining sector, the sector that we belong to, knows how to manage that situation reasonably well, and the ESG requirements we talked about before dictate that we must observe, those sorts of things, making sure that we don't impact negatively upon the environment or in the society. So I think that, look, there's going to be tension along the way as to, the development of large mines, particularly where farmers are displaced or people using are displaced. I do think there is a place for mining in all of these economies. So not only in terms of providing taxation revenue, but also in terms of employment, upskilling of people, educating people. Sorry about that. Oops, sorry, we'll turn that one off. Sorry about that. There's very definitely a role for mining companies to play in the development of those countries. Now, which of those countries are going to be most prospective? Well, look, I think the one area that is of interest to us, of course, is the Nubian Shield area in northeastern Africa. This is one of the last, relatively underexplored environments, probably underexplored for a very good reason, and that is that the geopolitics of that region over the last 30 or 40 years has been less stable than, say, in other parts of Africa. But nevertheless, the mineral endowment over there is enormous, it would appear. And I think that over the next few years, both the Nubian Shield and the Saudi Shield will attract a lot of interest from mining companies. And I think that what we're seeing is that those host countries are very, very keen to encourage miners to come to their countries and to participate in the growth and development of those regions. So, look, I think it's an interesting time. There are challenges all around. And as I say, conflict, land use, etc., impact on environment, etc., etc. All of those things are very important. But I do believe that there is a path to be charted through all that, and that mining companies like ours will find success in future years by doing the right thing by all of our stakeholders.
Yeah. As a conclusion, just wonder what the next 12 to 18 months looks like, obviously in the shorter term.
Well, look, I think the next 12 to 18 months, what we'll be seeking to do is to continue doing what we're doing and then do it a little bit better. We look to grow a little more, to continue the really strong operating performance we've had over the last few years, and to continue to create benefits all around.
Jeff, really appreciate your time. Obviously, you've done obviously achieved a lot in the last 2.5 years, and like you to obviously come back on the podcast maybe next year to give us a further update. If our audience wants to sort of reach out to you or want to follow Perseus's journey, how can they go about doing that? Are you across any social media platforms?
Oh yeah, well we obviously have a website, and which is www.perseusmining.com, and we do put out quite a lot of material onto the various social media platforms these days. I mean, and of course market releases that go onto the ASX and TSX exchanges. But we're a fairly accessible company, and we do put a bit of information out there, and always happy to to talk to people if they want to engage us a little bit further. Yeah.
Jeff, appreciate your time and wish you continued success. And audience, appreciate your time for listening. Appreciate you can also share this episode with others in the industry, wherever you are in the world. It's a great story that Perseus has gone through over the last 2.5 years. And it just shows you what you can do as a junior miner, with the right people, the right asset, and how you can grow your junior mining company. So until next time, happy mining.